The pitch from Acevedo.
Swung on and line down the left field line for a base hit.
Fly ball, gap, right center field.
Double him up at second.
Luke is going back to the 1-8 track. Get out the right, run and mustard grandma. It is grand salami time.
Polanco sent it into right, and will send Seattle to the American League Championship Series for the first time in 24 years.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Like the W podcast. As always, your host, Mahal, Domingo, Anderson. And today, I'm here to talk on episode 203 of the show about George Kirby. Alright, I'm recording this Tuesday, August 25th, 5:28 p.m. is the time of recording. And look, ultimately, George Kirby starting tonight. He could have a fantastic start between when I'm recording this and when this releases. But I want to talk about George Kirby. And I want to talk about George Kirby in a very serious sense. Kirby was thrown around in trade proposals at the trade deadline. We know he was talked about between the Mariners and a bunch of other teams. Do we know those teams specifically? No. But what we do know is that George Kirby is not the same guy he was 2 years ago. He's not the same guy he was in 2024. And 2024 was a really, really good season for George Kirby. So the question of who is George Kirby is not one that I can answer. I would love to be able to answer that question, but ultimately, that's not a question that I can answer. What I can answer, what I can talk about are the numbers around George Kirby. I can talk about what's been good, what's been bad, what's the same, what's different from 2024. And I can talk about what he's done this year specifically with numbers. But I'm not in the clubhouse, I'm not in the dugout, I'm not watching this team in the ballpark day in, day out. I'm not even necessarily watching every single one of George Kirby's starts on TV, right? So a lot of what I'm doing here is going off of numbers, admittedly. But when I watch George Kirby, the eye test, he doesn't pass it as well. All right. I want to talk about some splits before we get into anything else. May 17th is the date I'm going to use for all these splits for Kirby. May 17th was a start against the San Diego Padres that Kirby had, where he went 5 2/3 innings, gave up 6 runs, all of which were earned in that start on 6 hits, 2 walks, and he had 6 strikeouts. Okay, including that start, since then he has 15 starts where he's thrown 83 innings and has an ERA over 5. His whip is nearly 1.5. And opponents are slashing 310, 345, 519 with a 44% hard hit rate. Well, he's averaging about 5 innings per every start. Okay, so ultimately, right, Kirby just hasn't flat out been good since the middle of May. It's now late August. Today's August 25th. This will release August 26th. That was multiple months ago, nearly 3 months ago. Over 3 months. Wait. June, July, 3 months ago. Over 3 months ago. It's been over 3 months that George Kirby has been bad. And look, he did have a stretch in there where he was really good with getting quality starts. But ultimately, a lot of those starts, he was still giving up 3+ runs. Right? He was giving up 3 runs in a lot of those starts, and he gave up even, I think, a few more in some of them. And it was just 3 earned runs or less. Okay? Like, flat out, he hasn't been good enough. And what's interesting is that date is really a flip point for the entire season. You look at what he did before that start. Again, it was 15 starts after, throwing 83 pitches with an ERA over 5. Prior to that start this season, Kirby had 10 starts with an ERA of 3.45 and 62 2/3 innings pitched. An ERA under 3.5 compared to an ERA over 5. That is a huge difference in terms of quality of pitchers. We're talking like a late year's Marco Gonzalez versus a George Kirby of 2 years ago. Right? Like, George Kirby in 2024, a 3.53 ERA and a 1.07 whip. Whip was basically 1, ERA was 3.5 basically. right? And prior to, again, that May 17th date, like, opponents were only having a 40% hard hit rate, which is still not great, but, like, that is much better than what it has been since then, which is 44%. Opponents were only slashing 249, 303, 361. And the big difference there is the slug. 361 slug in the first 10 starts of this season. The 15 cents, 519. And to me, that comes down to the fastball first and foremost. And that's why the fastball is going to be something we specifically talk about today in this episode around George Kirby. Okay, but before we get into that, 2024 George Kirby, 191 innings over 33 starts. He had a 3.53 ERA again and a 1.07 whip again. Giving those numbers right back to you. Last year, obviously got injured in spring training, missed the first, I think, month and a half of the year. Only got 23 starts, 126 innings. And his numbers weren't that good, right? Like a 4.21 ERA is not a quality ERA by any means. However, his whip was still under 1.20, right? It was still a decent whip. It was closer, and it was like, okay, Kirby can bounce back from this. It was the injury affecting him. Yet here he is in 2026, and he just hasn't taken a step back towards 2024. He's taken a step further almost in the 2026 or in the 2025 direction, which is just not good. Right? 2024 George Kirby looked like he was going to be a guy that was a 2 at worst in this rotation for years to come. Yet in 2025 and 2026, he's been a 4 or a 5 even, depending on when you're looking. And like legitimately, since May 17th, he's been a 5, if not worse, in this rotation. So far this year overall, Kirby has an ERA of 4.18 over 24 starts, 140 innings. More starts, more innings than last year now. It'll increase again tonight. ERA still over 4, though slightly better than last year. However, his whip is the issue. All right, the whip is 1.36 this year. Okay, again, whip is walks and hits per innings pitched. So you got to think of it as base runners per inning. Okay, so his whip has increased from what was about 1 base runner per inning to about, 1 and 2/10 of one to 1 and 4/10 of one. Okay, it's progressively getting worse. And that's an issue for a guy that his calling card, right, is, I'm not going to allow a ton of base runners, not going to allow a ton of damage, I'm not going to walk guys. That's struggled. His walk rate's doubled since 2024, basically, from 3% to over 5.5%. His strikeout rate has dropped from 23% to 20% this year. And a lot of people talked about, it's the arm angle, right? His arm angle was too low last year. It's too much of a sidearm sort of piece. Well, he's gone more over the top this year, much closer to the 37 degrees that it was in 2024, at 34 degrees on average this year. And his stuff has not gotten better. It's gotten worse. Stuff plus is a measurement that averages pitches in terms of their stuff at 100. Anything above 100 is good. Anything below 100 is bad. Okay? Let's talk about the fastball. The 103 stuff plus that his fastball had in 2024 was the highest of his career in any single season. In 2026, his stuff plus has dropped to 91. So what was a slightly above average pitch is now pretty significantly, I would say, below average as a pitch, especially when it's a fastball that you're throwing 25-30% of the time. That stuff plus of 91 is the lowest of any single career season for Kirby. Lower than last year, lower than his rookie year, lower than any season of his career thus far. And that's a concern. So you think, right, well, is it the velocity? No, the velocity is actually higher than it was in 2024 on average. Is it the spin rate? No, it's pretty similar. So what is it that's allowing and making this fastball not play to the way that it's supposed to? He's given up 8 home runs on the fastball this year, just purely on the four seam. believe he's given up 2 or 3 as well on the sinker. Like, he's given up home runs, he's given up extra base hits, and it's coming from his fastball, first and foremost, which for a guy that doesn't have a secondary that's his calling card, like, that's an issue. You have to be able to throw a fastball. You think about Cade Anderson, this is a guy I talked about how the question with him is going to be what kind of fastball value does he get, right? What does his fastball look like? Can he get out with it? Can he get outs with it? Can he get swing and miss with it? What is it going to look like? Well, even beyond what Cade Anderson is with his fastball, he has a really good curveball. He has a pretty solid slider. Like, he has a changeup. Like, he has secondary pitches that are legit pitches. Kirby doesn't have that luxury. In 2024, you talk about the knuckle curve. You talk about the splitter as pitches that were able to get swing and miss, as pitches that were able to get outs. Okay? The splitter. 2024, stuff plus was 116, 16% above league average among splitters. It's now down to 101, basically a league average splitter. Alongside that, when he was throwing 10% of the time in 2024, pretty significant amount for a splitter, and it had a 30% nearly whiff rate on it. It was his swing and miss pitch. He now just throws it 1% of the time, and when it's gotten thrown, it's gotten hit. Alongside that, the knuckle curve that was 18% above the average, a 118 stuff plus, has dropped to 106. So those secondary pitches that were good pitches and were getting outs and were valuable for him in 2024 aren't valuable anymore. He doesn't have a fastball. He doesn't have the secondary. So what does George Kirby bring as a pitcher? He doesn't have the same command. He's not having the same conviction he had in 2024. He doesn't look like he has the confidence he had in 2024. It's a concern. And that knuckle curve is a legit concern. It's a pitch that he's throwing 10% of the time this year. Yet opponents are hitting .409 against it with a .614 slug and just 23% whiff rate on the pitch. The knuckle curve has not produced at all. So he's mostly become a four-seam sweeper guy. Well, the sweeper has been a pretty solid pitch. That's been about it. You need at least 2 or 3 quality pitches in Major League Baseball to be able to consistently get outs and throw quality starts at the big league level. And George Kirby just ultimately doesn't have that. The fastball's getting hit hard as well this year, right? 267 average against it with a 448 slug. And I mentioned the walk rate earlier. 3% to 5.5% from 2024 to 2026. Strikeout rate has dropped 3% from 23% to under 20%. So since 2024, Kirby's arsenal has evolved. It's changed. He's gone from a guy that threw a pretty significant portion of his pitches being fastballs, the majority of his pitches being fastballs, so now the fastball is his second, nearly third most used pitch. And it hasn't been a quality pitch again. His most used pitch this year is a sweeper, which then begs the question, how do you get left-handed hitters out? As a right-handed pitcher where you're using a ton of sweepers, don't really have a splitter or a changeup, how are you getting lefties out? And Kirby's gotten beat with that. So, look, admittedly, right, I'm on the side of, Kirby scares me. I'm worried about Kirby. I don't really know what Kirby is. He's the one I would trade, right? He's taken his value even with it. And I have legit concerns about George Kirby going forward through the rest of this season. Like, left-handed hitters are slugging .459 against him with an OPS of nearly 800. He's facing the Phillies tonight, a lineup that has multiple quality left-handed hitters that can slug. It doesn't feel like it's going to be great. 24 walks to 55 strikeouts against lefties. Really not a good number, right? 2.29 strikeouts per walk versus against right-handed hitters, 6.89 strikeouts per walk. Kirby has platoon split issues. He has fastball issues. He has secondary pitch issues. He has a lot of issues. And with that, it's giving the Mariners issues. A team that, look, if Bryce Miller had even been decent over his past 2 starts, the Mariners would be a game and a half out, a half game out of first place in the American League West. And that's just his last 2 starts. George Kirby needs to figure it out, and needs to figure it out soon, because this team needs George Kirby to be good. This team relies on its starting pitching. This team relies on its veteran starting pitching now at this point. It relies on these guys to go out there and give the team a chance to win games. And George Kirby too often has not given this team a real and legit opportunity to win. And I am concerned about his start here against the Phillies, against a team that hits righties pretty well, against a team that's been hitting the ball really well, and against a team that, let's face it, has been hitting the ball well and got pretty much silenced last night. This could be another 22-0. I'm concerned. George Kirby has me concerned for the rest of this year. This rotation has me concerned for the rest of this year. Bryce Miller, Bryan Woo, George Kirby all have me concerned right now. Bryan Woo, the least of which, mostly because he's dealing with the shoulder thing. And ultimately, I think Cade Anderson's going to be good, but I have concerns about Cade Anderson during the stretch run as well, because how much is Cade Anderson going to be able to throw 6 innings? This bullpen needs its starting pitchers to go at least 6 innings in games, and they haven't done it consistently enough. And look at the state of this bullpen. Gabe Spire's not a guy that can go throw 2 days in a row consistently. Carlos Vargas can't really do that right now. Matt Brash, when he gets back, is not going to be able to do that. Cooper Criswell, when he gets back, not going to be able to. And you're an arm short in the bullpen. This team needed bullpen help at the deadline. They still need bullpen help. And now they're deciding to go an arm short in the bullpen. For the time being, at least. If I am the front office, I'm looking at this bullpen, I'm looking at this rotation. Someone has to move to the bullpen, and it needs to happen soon. Or you IL Bryce Miller for a few weeks, and then you do that switch. But one way or another, you need to have a full 8-man bullpen until September hits here. Until that, once that happens, okay, we can have more conversations. But when that happens, then you have a 9-man bullpen, and you're feeling even better about it. You cannot run an arm short for another week. You're going to make Edward Bizardo's arm fall to the depths of the Puget Sound. It's going to be on Elliott Bay's freaking floor. If you let him pitch as much as he is. Michael Rucker, the same thing. And it starts with the starting rotation. It starts with them figuring out how to go deep into games. Can we get a 7-inning start, for fuck's sake, from somebody? Just once. Just once. Okay. Mariners got a really nice win on Monday night. Really nice win. It was a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to, experience. Cal Raleigh 3 home runs and see back. I don't know. More of that. You get a series win here against the Phillies, and Jeff and I will be having a blast when we record, hopefully later this week sometime, for Friday's episode. However, till Friday, enjoy yourself some baseball, watch Hard Knocks. Till then, as always, go Nerds, go M's. Peace, y'all.